This episode is brought to you by Sterling Soap Company. Fellas, you've heard the phrase, look good, feel good, right? But why not add smell good to that too? That's where Sterling Soap Company comes in. First, Sterling Soap is 100% natural and has a wide variety of bath soaps, shave soaps, beard balm, lotions, and cologne. Second, there's a scent just for you. How about burgundy? Yeah, it's more than a color. The Sterling Soap folks blend natural essential oils with hints of mahogany, golden amber, and sandalwood. Or how about D503, an intensely masculine scent inspired by Legend by Mont Blanc. And third, you will feel good about the price. For just a little more than you'd pay at the grocery store, Sterling Soap will leave you feeling clean, refreshed, and ready for whatever's next. Give Sterling Soap a try today. Visit sterlingsoap.com.
This podcast is part of the Sports History Network, your headquarters for the yesteryear of your favorite sport. You can learn more at sportshistorynetwork.com.
Sports from back in the day. From Atlanta, it's Dana on the mic, talking old school legends, bringing history to life. We go deep like a spiral in the Superdome, back when athletes let the game do the talking alone. Jordan fadeaways, Jackie in the zone, Ali in the ring, man, he stood all alone. From the Negro Leagues to the ABA, we break it all down, yeah, the classic way. It's Charles from the district, straight out the Boutte. Southern University pride, repping truth in the booth. From Baton Rouge to the nation's capital, legends on deck. Yeah, we factual, tales of the greats, gold chains and all. Baseball, who dreams in that football brawl? No clickbait, no fluff, just the facts we say. It's historically speaking sports from back in the game. So sit back, tune in, and hit replay. It's historically speaking sports, the classic way.
Ladies and gentlemen, football is back, and not a moment too soon. Hello, sports fans. I'm Dana Auguster. My co-host Charles Combs will be around shortly. And welcome back to football, ladies and gentlemen. This is our welcome back to football edition of the Historically Speaking Sports Podcast, where we bring you the best of sports from back in the day. In this special episode, we have Charles, myself, and a couple of other guys that are not only football knowledgeable aficionados, but also friends of mine and very, very passionate football fans of their respective teams, as we will talk to them about the upcoming season, talk to them about their origin stories of their fandom, as well as who we think are some of the most overrated and underrated quarterbacks, coaches, and teams in this upcoming 2025 NFL season. Plus, later in the program, we will highlight and talk about some of our all-time favorite football movies. Some are very well known, others are kind of lost to history, and one of them that we talk about goes back actually 100 years. So please stay tuned for that. And also, we'll also touch on a little college football along the way. So please sit back, relax, and pull up a chair, and you're listening to our all-new Welcome Back to Football special edition of the Historically Speaking Sports Podcast right here on the Sports History Network.
Hey there. Welcome to Music Meets Sportz, where sports legends meet custom soundtracks. Founded by music producer Ronald Tyke Oliver, Music Meets Sportz was created to bridge generations, educate fans, and celebrate the greatness of both current and former athletes. We craft original songs about heroes in basketball, football, baseball, boxing, and beyond, highlighting their struggles and victories. Across all musical genres, we reintroduce fans to their favorite athletes in a way they've never heard before. From Babe Ruth to Reggie White, from rising WNBA stars to timeless NFL great stream, or download our music now on Apple Music, Amazon, and Spotify. Visit musicmeetsports.org to explore the catalog, hear new releases, and join the movement that's preserving sports history, one song at a time.
And welcome back to football, everybody. This is Dana Augusta, the host of the Historically Speaking Sports podcast right here on the Sports History Network. And also, for the first time ever, this episode is so big that it's going to be on YouTube. So if you're watching us on YouTube, hello, I'm Dana Augusta, little face with the familiar voice, along with my partner in crime, Charles Combs. But we also have a couple of special guests on hand. One guy that's been with us before, very knowledgeable about the world of football, and is also a big fan. We're talking about none other than Mark Boutte. And joining us for the first time ever, one of my closest friends, been a friend of mine for 50 years, pretty much, because we grew up together. Grew up in the same neighborhood, a couple houses down from one another. A man by the name of David Bashay, he's on board with us. So, guys, thank you for joining us on this Sunday afternoon, right before the start of the NFL season.
Always great to be here, man. Looking forward to another one, and always good to talk shop with the brother Mark and David. Welcome aboard as well. Looking forward to the discussion with you as well.
Thank you.
Now, we're going to start things off like this. Just a quick introduction to our teams. Those of you who are watching on YouTube, you see that I'm wearing my LA Chargers hat. Been a Chargers fan since the early 1980s, since the height of the Air Coryell era. I love high-scoring teams. I love the powder blue and gold, even though we're somewhat snake bit because our team name has become synonymous with blowing games. In other words, we Charger games. In other words, we blow a big lead. David, many times that we've talked on the phone, you and I have had a lot of discussions about this, so you are well aware of my pain. Everybody else, you understand. Everybody else, you have to understand there's a lot of pain in my voice when it comes down to Chargers at times. But let's start off with Chuck. Chuck, you coming in here rolling with the Saints gear. Obviously, you're a Saints fan. Tell us about your fandom of the New Orleans Saints.
Well, fandom of the New Orleans Saints, it started kind of late, actually, because, actually as a kid, I used to love the Washington Redskins. Like in the 80s, used to love Big John Regans, Joe Washington, Joe Theismann, Art Monk, all of those guys. But then when we were in college at Southern around that time, like when we were upperclassmen, that's when I began to kind of, you start making your own money a little bit. I started going to a few Saints games, because it was like, even though they stink, they're an actual professional franchise, the only professional franchise the state of Louisiana had at the time. So I started going to some of the Saints games, and that was right there in conjunction with Jim Haslett's first season with Aaron Brooks, Joe Horn, and those guys, and kind of started developing a deep affinity. I'm going to start rooting for the home team. Now, the irony of the whole deal is I wound up moving to the city of my childhood team, which is crazy, but it started there, and just started supporting them and kind of been a staunch supporter ever since.
All right. Now, Mark, you're a fan of a certain team, and it's surprising that you and Charles are so close, because your team is a direct rival, from what I remember, is a direct rival of the New Orleans Saints. Who would that be?
Well, that's the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And I remember as a kid, I did not want to root for the Saints. So I ended up picking a team, and I've been sticking with them ever since.
All right. So, I mean, you're from Louisiana. What part of Louisiana are you from?
you Patterson
You're from Patterson,
is a
but
town, yeah.
mhm.
Which is closer, kind of right between Lafayette and New Orleans.
Right.
So
And so you're right there in the Saints' backyard, but you turned coach just like me and became a Buccaneer fan. And
yeah.
I will talk about the Buccaneers a little bit later within the show, so please stay tuned for that. Now, the newbie of the bunch, and I know this guy has been a fan of this team like forever. And he has a very interesting origin story of this, so I'm told. Would you like sharing that, David, who is like I said, lifelong friend of mine? We've been friends since we were little kids. David, you're a fan of a certain team, and I feel like I'm the oddball in this because I am I'm the only guy who's a fan of an AFC team. You're a fan of an NFC team. Which team is that?
Well, Dana, I'm gonna say this. We're in the same boat when it comes to feeling pain through all the years and since the last time we've made any kind of noise, at least any kind of relevant noise. But I still stick with them. I still stick with them no matter what. And I am a fan of the blue and white, the Dallas Cowboys.
You've told me you had sent me like a little bit of in preparation of the show. You sent me like a little thing about your origin story of the Dallas Cowboys and why you like them. Share that with us if you don't mind.
Well, this is a story that I've never told anybody ever about when and how I got to started liking the Cowboys. You know, when I talk about them, it was just, oh, the Cowboys is my team. That's my team. Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. But it started when way back, I was liking the Saints, just for obvious reasons, just being right there in Louisiana. Then I was searching for this team when I saw how bad they was back in that time. And I'm like, no, I need to find somebody else. So I'm looking at uniform colors to be, and then so I'm like, okay. And then it was the Chargers. I was liking the Chargers. You know how we talked about Chuck Muncie and Dan Fouts and those guys.
Right.
And how I remember, how me and you talked about the guy that kept getting hurt and getting back in the game and getting hurt. I was kind of liking them then.
Yeah, Kellen Winslow. You're talking about Kellen Winslow, the famous Kellen Winslow game. That's right, yeah.
So then I'm looking for another team. Then I kind of got on the Seahawks bandwagon.
Really?
And yes, just by virtue, okay, I like their uniforms. I like that kind of bluish, silverish color when they had Steve Largent, Dave Craig. But I'm like, but there's something about them. And so the funny part is I went next door to Miss Gloria's house, Gloria Hill.
Right, okay.
And not knowing that how much of a big fan of the Cowboys she was. So I went to her house. I think my mama must have sent me over there for something. And the Cowboys was on. I forgot who they were playing, but they were playing somebody. And it's the one thing the Cowboys did that automatically turned me on, and that's that little deal they call the Landry shift.
Yeah.
When they do the little 3-point stand, when they bounce up and bounce down, I love that. I love that. And then that was one of my draws to the Cowboys. And then the whole thing with Tony Dorsett and Leon Lett. And then I remember watching the play. I think it was like the Bills or somebody they were playing when Dorsett just went off. I'm like, oh yeah, I got to roll with these boys. And ever since, and this was even before the Emmitt Smith and Troy Aikman days, was when I got on board with the Cowboys and never looked back since.
Well, David, you have never told me that story that you always you came close to being a Seahawk fan. And
the Chargers fan.
And the Chargers, that's right. You and I could have been in the same boat. And I remember the time that you were a Charger fan. It was like a cup of coffee you had with them when we were kids. And quiet as kept, there's pictures of me when I was 7, 8 years old. At one time I got for Christmas a Dallas Cowboys uniform. I will post it. Right. You remember that, Dave, right?
Yes.
And I will post it on social media to prove it that my sister dug it up of me for Christmas wearing a Dallas Cowboys kitty uniform. And I thought she had burned all the negatives, but obviously she didn't. And but yeah, that was me. That once upon a time, guilty as charged, I was once a Cowboy fan. Now, moving on to the upcoming season, okay, I would like to play a game. And this is totally organic, and we don't have to spend a whole lot of time on this because there's something that I really want to get to that I think is a really cool deal. But I will say this, that I will go once around and have everybody make their claim on this. Okay. I like to play a game called overrated, underrated. Okay. And what I'll do is I will go around, I will start to give you an example. And I will say, for example, I'm going to give you guys to think about it. Okay. Overrated current NFL quarterback. For me, is Jared Goff of the Detroit Lions. I think he's overrated. He was overrated with the Rams, and I think he's still overrated now. What do you guys think?
For me, someone jump in. I'll
Go ahead,
defer.
Go ahead, Chuck.
Well, for me, yeah, it's some validity to that, but you got to think about it though. The man has made one Super Bowl, and he should have made two if he didn't have. If he didn't have an imbecile for a coach. You remember because they had that 49er game year before last in the NFC Championship game, all
Yeah.
but one, and I can see your claim where he's overrated, but he's done more than most, though, to be honest.
Yeah, I think at a time when he was with the Rams and he basically backed into a Super Bowl thanks to a very controversial call against the Saints in the NFC Championship game, where he really didn't play all that well, but he basically got let off the hook, so to speak. But as far as Jared Goff overall, he's one of those quarterbacks to me that's like, okay, he's good, but you're waiting for the other shoe to drop. You're waiting for him to like, okay, he's about to screw this up. You just don't have a lot of trust in him. Okay, that's overrated. But I will say this: he's who I picked to be overrated. But there's another quarterback who, if he doesn't play well this year, will be so far away as the most overrated quarterback in the NFL. And I will shock everybody by saying this:
I know what you're going to say.
Justin Herbert.
Oh,
Yes, I think Justin Herbert, because he's been getting passes all his career up to this point. Who did you think I was going to say, Chuck?
I thought you were going to say Lamar Jackson.
No, I don't think he's overrated at all.
Okay.
Not even
All
close.
right. Okay.
Okay. Chuck, I'm going to pose the question to you. Who do you think is an overrated quarterback?
Overrated quarterback for me, without a doubt, is Josh Allen. For me,
Really?
yes, because they sit here and just, it's just like, oh, Josh this, oh, Josh that, and just he's good, but the same thing that you pose, not quite to the extent of Herbert, obviously, because he has made some playoff trips, but he's kind of come short in some big moments too. Like you remember that playoff game in Kansas City a few years back. Now,
Yeah.
it's not his fault that the dude didn't squib kick it. They were up with 13 seconds left. But then they still had a chance to win that game. And then he's kind of come short a few times as well and all of that. But it just seems like a lot of times that his short steps or misgivings are kind of sometimes brushed aside.
Really? All right.
Yes.
So you got Josh Allen as being overrated. I never thought that coming from, but hey, to each his own. Mark, who you think is overrated?
Patrick Mahomes.
I knew somebody was going to say that. I just knew somebody was going to say that. I didn't want to be the
Look,
one to say it. I wanted, as much as I am a Chiefs hater, obviously, but Pat Mahomes, what's your take on him? Why do you think he's
well,
overrated?
he not saying he's a bad quarterback. I think he's in a system that protects him well, surrounded by great talent. But for some reason, you look at the Eagles game. he has his moments, and when he can't rely on his legs and the defense got him, he can't do anything.
Do you think that the Eagles have pretty much solved the riddle of the Chiefs' offense for everybody to pretty much take, kind of a lesson from the Super
Well,
Bowl? You think
you know how the NFL is. Once the tape's out, everybody's got it. So they're gonna
yeah.
lock in on that and figure out how to beat them. So Andy Reid better come up with something different over there
Yeah.
because I think they got probably 2 more seasons with the team they have now, and they're gonna start to break them guys up.
Interesting. David, who you think is overrated?
I would have to say C.J. Stroud,
Oh,
in
okay.
my opinion, and I guess that's because living in Houston, all you hear is the Texans this, the Texans that, and it's always, oh, they're gonna have a good year, which they do. They've made some noise over the past few years, but again, they run into a stumbling block called the Chiefs. They run into a stumbling block called the Ravens. They run into this team that just knocks us out, and it just seems like Stroud disappears. At the time when the team needs him the most. And I'm just kind of wondering, is that whole team overrated?
Well, I think with the Texans, though, I mean, like last year, it was essentially their first year with that regime, with D'Amico Ryans as coach. This is their first real true, they've been to the playoffs a couple times under CJ Stroud. That's another quarterback that's right now is like kind of under the microscope as far as like maybe being a little bit overrated, but
Right.
but I think you kind of give him a pass because he's so young. I go back to Justin Herbert because he was a young quarterback who made a lot of big plays and he set the bar really high for himself coming out of Oregon. But at the same time, you had a coach at the time in Brandon Staley who would go for it on fourth down as if he's playing Madden, okay, and put him in a lot of bad spots, and he kind of worked himself out of it. Now, last year they made the playoffs. They lose to Houston. He's in the playoff for the second time in his career. He's 0-2 in the playoffs, losing to Jacksonville in a game they had no business losing. And now it's his second year under Harbaugh, and all of the excuses are pretty much now out the window. Okay, now put up a shutter. You have no more excuses. And I'm saying this as a Charger fan, which is, I'm being real. As David, as you would like to say all the time, I'm being totally objective. Okay?
Right.
Okay. Now, who I think is underrated. Here's a guy David knows all too well. Jordan Love of the Green Bay Packers. I think he's underrated.
Oh, you had to go there and remind me, huh?
Yes, I did. Yes, I did. I think Jordan Love of the Green Bay Packers is underrated. I think he's a lot better because I think people are still kind of waiting for him to oh yeah, he's good. He played well in the playoffs. The Packers are a good team, but it's not Aaron Rodgers. It's not the Packers that we're used to. So we're waiting for him to kind of fail, but that's who I think is being underrated.
Okay.
Right. Okay, Chuck, who you have as being underrated?
Oh boy, I can't believe I'm saying this, but I gotta tell the truth. I think my underrated quarterback is Baker Mayfield. He's a guy that, he's quietly really solidified his NFL career when he started out from his number one draft pick, rather. He was with the Browns. He started off okay, then things fell in the tank and terrible and all of that. But I got to give him the props and the respect because, it's a lot of things they say he don't have he doesn't have the biggest arm. He doesn't have the most dynamic or explosive, but he went back to the drawing board. He just kept working, just kept watching film, just kept working. And then when the opportunity availed itself in Tampa Bay, he got in there and solidified himself as a solid NFL starting quarterback. Now, is he a guy that can take you to high places into the promised land? Probably not. But he's definitely a very, very solid and dependable starting quarterback. So I say Baker Mayfield.
All right. Okay, Mark, who you have as being underrated?
I'm gonna have to say Bo Nix. I know a lot of people I think just don't like the guy. I don't know why. Uh, he's got a good coach out there to take care of him, a good system that he fits. I think people just kind of need to lay off and give the young man a chance. All I ever hear is bashing about Bo Nix, and I mean, he showed up for me.
Well, you're not going to hear any bashing from Bo Nix coming from me, and with the Broncos in our division, he scares the crap out of me. He really does. That's the best quarterback Denver's had maybe since Elway, you know, and that is what I really believe that Denver got something cooking up there, and the Broncos are scaring the crap out of me, as far as us being, being we're trying to be division champs, but I think that the Broncos are going to be a big stumbling block for us. I really do. Dave, who you think is underrated?
Kind of surprisingly, I would have to say Lamar Jackson as
Really?
being underrated. Yeah, because they have the chemistry and, in my opinion, what they need to get to the Super Bowl. But it's just they just seem to fall short at the wrong time. But that doesn't take away from Lamar's abilities and what he has going for him. I think just with I don't know what it's gonna take to get them there, but I would have to put him down as an underrated quarterback.
So, David, you have Lamar Jackson as being underrated, and I have to kind of agree with that because as good as everybody talks about his lack of throwing talent. Let's just put it like that. Lack of throwing talent. Everybody trying to put the moniker on him, or he's a running quarterback. That's all he's good for, that sort of thing. But Lamar Jackson has proven over the last couple of years that if given the opportunity, he could throw for 350 yards a game. He really could. He could really put up numbers like a Pat Mahomes or put up numbers like a Josh Allen or Justin Herbert, as far as that's concerned, as being, that quarterback that Baltimore really needs, but you have to look at his situation, because Baltimore's situation, they're a team that likes to run the football. That's just their MO. They're very physical. They're old school physical type football team that is very, very physical right up front. They run the football, and the perfect quarterback to run something, that system that they have in Baltimore, is Lamar Jackson. So, and he's still trying to, and I agree with you. I look like he's still trying to prove himself on the major NFL stage, even after all these years, after winning MVPs. He's still trying to prove himself to the quote unquote establishment media, I guess. So that's a really good pick right there, being underrated. I kind of agree with that.
Yeah, and I was kind of thinking. I know you didn't ask for two, but I was also thinking a little bit Kyler Murray also.
Yeah, I mean Kyler Murray, he just needs some more weapons around him, though.
Right.
If he has some more weapons around him, then I think he'll be a bigger name, because he does make plays in Arizona. He does.
Now, to interject, I wholeheartedly agree with Dave because I nearly selected Lamar Jackson myself because, he's just basically, to me, he's far and away the best player in the league, period.
Right.
I mean, just overall player. And it's like, like they do with all of the great quarterbacks a lot of times. It's like, since they have the ability to really make the players around them better, they tend to get them substandard talent around them sometimes in terms of I'm specifically referring to his receiving core and thinking that he can make chicken gourmet out of chicken out of chicken poop a little bit. I know Zay Flowers is okay, but like they still haven't solidified, like they haven't given him a good deep downhill threat consistently, and
True.
He just continues to win games. And then I also think, which ties into my Josh Allen underrated. I just seem like they always compare he and Allen to each other, but it just seems like he's held to a totally higher and different standard than Allen is held to.
Right.
For some reason. It seems like his shortcomings are always amplified and it's all over the place. Whereas when Josh Allen comes up short, it's always a reason why.
Right. Moving on. Next up, we got over. The next one we're going to do is overrated coach. Okay, a coach that you guys think is overrated. And my pick as overrated coach, Kyle Shanahan of the 49ers. I think he's overrated. And it goes all the way back to his offensive coordinator time in Atlanta. He has a tendency to coach his team out of a game because he's afraid to make the big call, I think. When the 49ers were in the Super Bowl against Kansas City, there were times in that game that if Shanahan made a different type of call in that situation and stopped trying to be so cute, then the 49ers would have won. Same thing that happened with the Falcons when he was offensive coordinator with the Falcons. They blew that big lead against New England. I've always wondered about him is he too much in his father's style as far as like his father, Mike Shanahan, was more of a run first type of coach. And I think he gets a little bit of that. And I think he goes into that a little bit too much. So I think Kyle Shanahan is overrated as a coach. What you guys think?
I would say, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, you go ahead, Dave. You go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say Mike Tomlin, in my opinion, as an overrated coach.
That's a good one.
Yeah. As great as he is, it's just another team that just couldn't seem to get over the hurdles that the expectations were set for them. Now, of course, you got Baltimore in that division, you got Cincinnati in that division, but it just seems like when it comes down to it, they just can't get over the hurdle. But everybody talks about, Mike Tomlin and what they're going to do, how he's going to turn the team around, and it's never happened yet.
Now, I was going to pick Mike Tomlin, not to cut you off, but I was going to pick Mike Tomlin. But the one thing that just kind of prevented me from saying that is that he never had a losing season. Now, right. Pittsburgh has a certain level of expectations among his fans that, yeah, you have a winning season, but you don't go anywhere. And
that's my point.
Yeah, exactly. But at the same time, I just can't get past, somebody that wins year after year after year, winning season after winning season. Now, he is protected by coaching in Pittsburgh. They've only had 3 coaches since 1969. So, and that's not an exaggeration.
It started with Chuck Noll, right?
It started with Chuck Noll. So, they've only had 3 coaches since since Richard Nixon was president. So, they like stability there, but maybe it's getting to a point now where that stability is starting to bite them in the butt a little bit.
I totally agree with both of those. Definitely about Tomlin. And then you mentioned like the Tomlin winning season. You got to figure that you kind of got to grade that on the curve just slightly because he does have 2 wins in the bank each season because he plays the Browns twice a season automatically. True. So, we graded it on the curve just slightly. And then back to Kyle Shanahan, it seems like he has like same problem Sean Payton has, as great as Breeze and Payton were, only 1 Super Bowl appearance because it just seems like I'm referring to Shanahan, he always has to prove that he's the smartest guy in the room. And sometimes the best solutions are the simplest solutions. Like you have a 28-3 lead, you grind the clock down a little bit and you win the game. You remember they were in field goal range. He went shotgun, and then they got sacked and knocked out of field goal range. And then Brady, I think they fumbled too, and that was the catalyst for the drive. Now on to my most overrated quarterback. Coach rather. John Harbaugh is my most overrated coach.
Really? Okay.
Yes, because he has a Super Bowl, but it just seems like most coaches, they have like a staple most of the time on one side of the ball or the other. It seems like these days people are leaning more towards offensive coaches and offensive gurus, so to speak. But he was a special team coach, and when you think about him, you really don't know. Nothing really comes to mind in terms of staples or what it like Bill Walsh. offense, Belichick defense, Parcells defense. You really don't know. And then it's always a deal where, despite his talent, they always lose a game or two that they have no business losing. And
Right.
it always bites them in the butt. Like, for example, they had a couple terrible losses at home last year. And then ultimately a game when Mark Andrews dropped that 2-point conversion, that game, if you don't blow those other two games, perhaps that game is in Baltimore and you, as opposed to Buffalo, and you win
Yeah.
that game going away. And those losses came back to bite them in the butt.
Right. So you got John Harbaugh as overrated. Mark, who you got as overrated? The overrated coach.
Well, Charles hit it. I was about to say John Harbaugh as well.
Wow. Okay.
No, man. What we got? Playoff loss, Buffalo division loss, 2024. 2023 loss, Kansas City. 2022 loss, Cincinnati. 2020 loss, Buffalo. I mean, he you got one of the best quarterbacks in the league that plays for you. What's going on over there?
Yeah. I mean,
And what I feel is he's getting out coached.
Absolutely.
I really believe you hit the nail right on the head as far as, like, at times, and to Chuck's point, you have a tendency to see Baltimore lose games they have no business losing sometime during the regular season. It could be they could lose a game at home to the Browns, and you're like, okay, what the heck happened there? And it always comes back to, like, if they would have won this game or won this game over here, then maybe, things would be different. And a lot of those times, whenever you see them lose, it's like, okay, he just got out coached in that situation. But we see it as fans. But a lot of times the media don't really see it. But there are certain situations, there are certain times where you say, okay, John Harbaugh does have that Super Bowl win, but that's starting to get a little bit like back, like kind of way back there now, So I agree with Mark. That's a good choice of John Harbaugh, because a lot of people don't really talk about him in that vein.
No. No. And you got to think about it, going back to what Mark laid out, like in that what was it, 2025 now, that 2023 AFC title game in particular against the Chiefs. If you would have said before that game that the Chiefs would only score 17 points, everyone, including Chiefs fans, would have been good luck in the Super Bowl, Baltimore Ravens.
Yeah.
They found a way to lose that game. And to your point about the Super Bowl, remember the Super Bowl he got? Remember, that was the Beyonce blackout game. He had a huge lead at halftime
and nearly blew it.
And ran the opening second half kick Jacoby Jones back, and they had to hold on by a thread because he nearly blew that.
Exactly. I got one name that I nearly put down as far as underrated, and I'm going to talk about this team and further talk about this a little bit. What do you guys think of Zach Taylor of the Bengals? Is he overrated?
I was gonna say Zach after he picked John, but dude, you got the best QB receiver combination in the league.
Right.
What's the problem with that?
Exactly.
What are you not doing, Zach?
And I'm surprised nobody said Sean McDermott.
I was about to push Sean McDermott. I was about to push Sean McDermott, and then I thought about it. It's like, you got Kyle Shanahan, who has, I'm not going to say Brock Purdy's overrated yet. I'm still holding out like some faith for Brock Purdy, but it just seemed like the 49ers, I don't know what it is. They just seem like they always, you just when you're ready to say that, okay, they maybe they're returning back to their glory or whatever, and something happens, and then all of a sudden they fall off a cliff, and whether Brock Purdy gets hurt, which he has been getting hurt pretty regularly in the league in the last couple of years, it's Kyle Shanahan to me is underrated, and that team should be so much better than what it is. Even with Brock Purdy at quarterback, they should be a lot better than what they are.
Yes, and to Dave's point about McDermott, that's a very good one because you got to think even they showed up in the AFC title game after that Baltimore game, and it just basically like I'm not going to say they no showed, but he didn't quite have them ready to play at the level that they needed to play with to play at in order to advance to the Super Bowl. And then, as I mentioned earlier in the conversation, that 13 second, how you blow a 7 point lead in 13 seconds, man.
Yeah.
You know, it's just he's not a yeah, he's an overrated coach. Absolutely. Yes.
Okay. Underrated coach. My choice as far as an underrated coach will probably spark a debate. It will. I know it will. I know it's coming. I'm prepared for it. My underrated coach, Dan Campbell of the Detroit Lions. I think he's underrated. I see Chuck's expression. I see it. I think Dan Campbell's underrated. What he has done in Detroit is nothing short of a miracle. But at the same time, a lot of the people that watch football and make comments about football keep coming back to the quote, we're going to start biting knees and stuff in Detroit or whatever. I just think he done something in Detroit that a lot of people thought was virtually impossible. But the expectations of Detroit now, if they don't make it this year, then maybe you can start saying that maybe he's overrated. But what he has done in Detroit, and he doesn't really get a lot of credit for it. Detroit is probably the most balanced team in the NFL. They could beat you offensively, even though I did say Jared Goff is overrated, but he's a perfect quarterback for that system because you got two running backs behind him that could pretty much take the game over. And then you have the defense that is very, very good. And the only reason why they didn't fare well in the playoffs last year was because half of the defensive secondary and really half the defense itself was on IR. So Dan Campbell had pretty much this almost like a biblical turnaround in Detroit to make them not only relevant, but a Super Bowl contender.
I disagree with that. I just disagree with that to the infinite degree. I
Okay.
really do. Because we're talking about you say what he's done is nothing short of a miracle. I totally agree with you on that point because it's nearly. Well, let me backtrack. 2 years ago in that AFC title game, I'll never forget. My girlfriend is from Lansing, Michigan, so she has a vested interest in the Lions. We were in the Dave and Buster's watching the game, and you remember they jumped out to this big lead versus the Niners at halftime. They was up like 17 at halftime, and she was like, "Well, is the game over yet, or whatever?" In terms of from a competitive standpoint,
Right.
I was like, "No, it's not over yet." But if I were you, I would start telling all your friends to start looking at hotels and plane tickets in I think it was in Vegas that year. I think in Vegas, the price, the Super Bowl. By the 8-minute mark of the third, the game was tied. And it's just like sometimes, as I mentioned before, even in the Shanahan case, sometimes the best solutions are the simplest solutions. I remember the Niners came down, drove the field. Obviously, they in their park is not Candlestick. I don't know what the name of it is now.
Levi Stadium.
They're not going to go away. They're going to make their run. They immediately take the second half kickoff drive, cut the lead to 10. The Lions drive back, and the drive stalls around the 20. He goes for it again, and just leaving points on the board over and over and over again. And that just I was so mad. I was so mad. I had to tell you that story off air. But anyway, then you go to last year. The team responds by having home field throughout the playoffs. Guess what he does? They come off the bye. Which is only one of, because prior to that it was 2 byes, which is a huge advantage. They come off against the Commanders, totally unprepared to play and just get blown out in their own building. That's a direct reflection of the coach.
So you don't think that them losing a whole lot of defensive players had anything to do with that?
But in terms of that game versus
Because they
the
didn't have,
Commanders?
yes, I'm talking about, because they didn't have Aiden Hutchinson for half the year. Okay, because Aiden Hutchinson was their linebacker, was hurt for a good, like the last third of the year. He was out for, I think he got hurt on Thanksgiving, if I'm not mistaken. But he was hurt for a good part of the season, which is their defensive anchor. And you had a lot of guys, in the secondary that had no experience whatsoever. Now, is that a fault of the coach for not having this team prepared? Yeah, you could say that. But what he has done overall in Detroit, I think that a lot of coaches, a lot of people around the league have your sentiments exactly in that, yeah, he turned them around, but he goes for it too much on fourth down. He gambles too much, that sort of thing. But I think that what he has done overall, I think trumps all that.
Well, I mean, I would give 10% credence to the injuries because talent level, okay, sometimes, okay, that's an important thing. But for your team to not, because you remember they came out of that game, they were
flat.
they were
They
never
were flat.
in that
They
game.
were flat. I give you that.
And to me,
they were flat.
that has nothing to do with injuries. That they were never offense, defense, special teams. They were never in that game. And it's just like, how do you come off of the bye week not ready
Right.
or with a pulse?
Right. So who is your underrated coach, Chuck?
My underrated coach, unbelievably, is going to be Andy Reid. Unbelievably,
Really?
yes, because you got to think about it. Like a lot of the stuff that I think Mark alluded to when he was talking about Mahomes being overrated. Over the years, they've had a big time depletion of talent. They lost Tyreek Hill. They lost a couple of other key players here and there. They lost one of their best pass rushers. But they just keep getting back to the Super Bowl, and they've won 3 Super Bowls. Then you throw that in conjunction with what he did with the Eagles when, they had all he had prior to T.O. They made, 5 NFC championship games with Todd Stinson and James Trash at receiver. And all they had was Donovan McNabb and Brian Westbrook, and he managed. Now, they should have made a few more Super Bowls, but what he did with the lack of skill position talent, sans McNabb or Brian Westbrook, that was a miracle that he was able to keep getting back to those NFC title games over and over again. And then he proved once he moved to an entirely different franchise and coach that he's in fact a great coach. And I think he's nearly rounding the Mount Rushmore of coaches, even though I know that's not underrated, but I'm just saying, considering he's at that stature with what he's had to work with at times in his career, says a lot about his coaching capabilities.
All right. Mark, who you have as a coach that's underrated?
I'm going to say Raheem Morris.
All right here in Atlanta.
That's a very good one. Yes.
He spent, of course, he was at the Bucks and then went to Washington, I think, and then Atlanta and bounced around in Atlanta, different positions, defensive backs coach, then went to Los Angeles and proved his worth. And he did some really exciting things out there.
All right.
Because the Rams went to the Super Bowl that year. Now he's at Atlanta. He's doing good things. Them guys are pumped. They buying into him.
Yeah, and I should use your soundbite right there as basically as a commercial for Atlanta right now for the Falcons. Raheem Morris is a very, very underrated coach. I think what really kind of keeps him kind of like outside of the radar as far as like where coaches are concerned is the fact that he is coaching in Atlanta, and I think that him coaching in Atlanta, as a franchise, I don't think they've ever gotten over their loss to the Patriots in the Super Bowl. As a franchise, I think they're still kind of like dealing with that, But here's a team that's kind of like on the rise, but you're just waiting for that team to turn the corner. They're in a very winnable division in the NFC South. But are they good enough to beat Tampa Bay right now? I don't think they are, But Atlanta making the playoffs, that should be a goal for them to be a wild card because I don't think they're good enough to beat Tampa Bay right now. I just don't. David, who you got as your underrated coach?
I would have to say Dan Quinn because he went to the Commanders, in my opinion, and of course, with Jaden Daniels and turned that team around and made some noise. Went to Detroit and shocked the Lions in the playoffs last season. And I would just have to give the nod to Dan Quinn for what he did with that team and the noise that they made last year, up until a point where they got ousted out of the playoffs.
Now, this is a history-making moment, ladies and gentlemen, because David Bashay, a very well-known Washington football hater, has given some credit to a Washington football team. This is a historic moment, ladies and gentlemen. Let's give him a round of applause. Anyway, next up, last part of this look into we're playing overrated, underrated. Coming into this year, most overrated team. And I will go first. I had a couple of teams down, and I had the Cowboys, which is too easy. They're always overrated, in my opinion. Yes, David, I said it. They're always overrated. Another team that I had down was the Pittsburgh Steelers as them being overrated. But I'm like, no, but there's another team that I think is really overrated because of their performances over the last several years. And people really keep putting them as an elite team, and I just don't see it. And I'm staying within the AFC North, and I'm talking about the Cincinnati Bengals being overrated. Here's why. Great quarterback, best receiving core in the league, but they just can't get it done because they cannot start off fast. Every year they start off 2-4, 3-7, that sort of thing, and then have to bust ass just to get back into the playoff hunt, and then they lose at the very end of the season. They've been doing that ever since they went to the year they went to the Super Bowl. So I think the Cincinnati Bengals as a team is overrated. What y'all think?
I don't have a problem. I don't have a problem with that at all. And it's but question for you. Like a lot of, because like we talked about dearth of talent, for a couple of teams. You mentioned like right now, for instance, Hendrickson, he's out with the contract dispute and all of that.
Yeah.
Do you think that perhaps they are hindered perhaps by the notorious cheapness of the Brown family? Because, for example, even now, a story just came out the other day. They want to put Boomer Esiason in the Ring of Honor, but he had to pay for his own hotel in order to make the trip to be inducted into the Ring of Honor.
The Brown family is not necessarily the family. Is Mike Brown the actual owner of the franchise? Mike Brown is the son of Hall of Fame coach and Cincinnati Bengals founder Paul Brown. And Mike Brown and the Cincinnati Bengals is notorious for being cheap. I mean, really cheap. I mean, they're not as bad as like a Donald Sterling as far as like the Clippers are concerned. He's not that bad, but Paul Brown and the Bengals Mike Brown and the Cincinnati Bengals do have a reputation of being very cheap, over the years. And that is, I think that's part of it because you had this big, huge contract dispute with T. Higgins during the offseason, which they could have had that done quickly, and the same thing with Hendrickson. They could have had that done very quickly. I think the Bengals are still kind of under the cap. They're not overpaying for players, but still, that's just that's just Mike Brown and the Brown family being pretty much going for, kind of like staying true to their identity as being somewhat very, very, cheap. I didn't want to say cheap, but they're very reluctant to pay the money. You know what I'm saying? So, so Chuck, who you got you said who you have as an underrated team? I'm sorry. I mean overrated team.
Overrated team. I have the Houston Texans.
Okay.
Because year after year, It's like they had D'Amico Ryans, who's a very good coach. They have C.J. Stroud, who's a very good quarterback, and you just think, well, they're gonna make a run. You remember a couple of years ago, I think they made the divisional round, and then it's like, well, especially being that they're in the AFC South, which is arguably the weakest division in football, is between they and the NFC South. It's like you would think that they would make that run to that other echelon of teams to possibly compete for the Super Bowl and come out of that AFC conference. But it just seems like they just can't quite get it together despite the talent that they have. And they have a good coach that I hold in high esteem in D'Amico Ryans, but it just seems like they just can't. The sum is not equaling the parts right now.
Okay. So you have the Dallas Texans as a team that's overrated. Mark, who you have is overrated?
Baltimore.
The Baltimore Ravens.
We discussed. We're gonna see the same stuff. Get to the playoffs, and then what happens? I really think it's not a player issue; it's a coaching issue.
Really? Okay. In Baltimore, we've talked about it just a few minutes ago. This team is always right there, but they just could not put it together to just get over the hump and get into the playoffs. A term that my friend Dave uses all the time. A team looking for their shot, a team to get over the hump. And Baltimore has been that team in the NFL for going on, 5-6 years now, So, David, who is your team coming into the 2025 NFL season that you think is overrated?
Buffalo
Bills.
For pretty much the same reasons that y'all saying about Baltimore. Because we see this year in and year out. Buffalo goes so far, Baltimore goes so far, and they run into the Chiefs or somebody, and they're gone.
Wow.
Yeah.
So
that's pretty much it.
Yeah. So we got the Buffalo Bills as overrated. Now, my underrated team, and I think this team is the most underrated team in the NFL, and I predict they're going to ruin somebody's season. And do not be surprised if you see them in the NFC Championship game. And I am talking about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Baker Mayfield and Michael Evans may be the best passing combination in the NFL right now that no one's talking about. I think the way that the NFC is set up, that even though, sometimes you play in the division that's weak, it could be a double-edged sword in that, you could run the table pretty much in the division, but when you get to the playoffs, that's where the rubber meets the road. But with Tampa Bay, they have proven that with Baker Mayfield at quarterback, who I think is severely underrated, I really do think that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers can get into the playoffs and do something and shock people. Could knock out like the Philadelphia Eagles or knock out somebody in the NFC or maybe even the Lions. They can go up to Detroit and beat them. I think Tampa Bay is a team that everybody should be kind of not afraid of, but really be aware of coming into this year. And I am not saying that because Mark's here.
As a fan, I gotta disagree, man.
Really?
My only issue with Baker is Jekyll and Hyde. He'll come out throwing for 300 yards, 5 touchdowns, and the next week he throwing the ball like he Edward Scissorhands.
Really?
That's my only issue.
All right.
And now we got a new offensive coordinator. Well, I mean, we promoted a guy from it. We got a lot to deal with, a whole lot.
All right.
And my biggest thing was Baker, just his inconsistency. He knows he can run the ball, but he'll have these moments where he sits in the pocket too long. He won't run. He won't roll out. It gets very frustrating.
All right. Chuck, who you have as an underrated team?
My underrated team, Dana, you stole my thunder. I concur. Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they my underrated team too, because I know like with them, they're a solid team, well coached. And unlike when we were talking about in the Lions segment where they completely no-showed, they pretty much, for the most part, they come to play each week. They don't have these big lulls where they're up one week and really down another week. They solid on both sides of the ball. Now, do they have things particularly on offense that are going to blow you away? No. but they consistent. They don't. More importantly, they don't beat themselves because my old adage. I've always felt that in professional sports, and this is really true for the NFL, that more games are lost than won. And then to Mark's point earlier, even though he can be referring to Baker Mayfield, Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, he may have a 4 TD game one week, but you rarely see him have that game where he's thrown like 3 picks and a fumble or something, or 1 for a pick six. Even a poor game for him is like something like 2 touchdowns, perhaps 3 interceptions, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions. And that's not good, but that still gives you a chance to win a ball game. No, it's he still gives you a chance to win. Obviously you need to make some other plays in the other areas of the phases of the game, but he gives you a shot.
Right. Okay. Mark, who is your underrated team this year?
Atlanta Falcons.
Now
I
that-
like what Coach Morris is doing over there. You got Penix Jr. there now. They really working on their defense. I really think that he's gonna put it together.
Now, with somebody who lives here in Atlanta, I kind of agree with that. The only thing that I'm wondering about is, Michael Penix Jr. has played well in the preseason from what I saw. You have a really good running back in Bijan Robinson. They give him the ball more. But I think that might be a team to watch out for in the NFC, really to make some noise. And that's a really good pick. Dave, who you got as your underrated team?
I'm thinking a team, like you say, Dana, a team that can ruin somebody's season would be the Minnesota Vikings.
Really?
Yes, because I know through the years, as much as me and you talk, you always say, yeah, Minnesota's looking good, but you can't trust them. They're going to fall apart in the playoffs. They're going to have an incredible season. But I can see them, making some adjustments to go further into the playoffs and really shock somebody.
Even though they have like McCarthy is going to be their quarterback. He's in his second year, but he didn't play at all last year at their quarterback.
Right.
So that's the only thing that I'm kind of leery about. Now, you do have Jordan Jefferson as receiver. You have a really good defense there, but it's just that you got McCarthy at quarterback as a rookie. Essentially, he's his second year, but he didn't play at all last year because he got hurt in the preseason. That's the only thing that I'm kind of leery about when it comes to the Minnesota Vikings.
Okay.
So, last thing about this year before we move on. If somebody gave you some truth serum right now, who is your pick in the Super Bowl? Who do you think will be representing the AFC and NFC in the Super Bowl? Who do you think? Me personally, I was going to pick Baltimore, but I picked Baltimore the last 2 years. I'm not going down that road anymore. So I don't think Philly's going to repeat. So that's out. So I'm thinking this year, Buffalo will get their shot. I think it's going to be Buffalo and Detroit in the Super Bowl.
I like that pick.
But I think it'll be Buffalo. I think it's Buffalo, Detroit in the Super Bowl this year.
Well, we picked them last year too, though, didn't we?
What happened? What did you say, Dave?
I said I think we mentioned Buffalo and Detroit last year as well.
No, last year I picked Philly and Baltimore. Last year.
Okay.
Last year I picked Philly and Baltimore. I got Philly right because I picked Philly to win. So I got that right. So hopefully I go 2 in a row. And there's a story the one time that I picked the Saints to win the Super Bowl, they actually did. Like when they beat Indianapolis, I picked that year the Saints to win and they won it. So, I just wanted to throw that in there. Chuck, who you have as winning this year's Super Bowl, playing in the Super Bowl and win? Who you got?
Well, I have Baltimore and Detroit this year.
Okay.
And then I got Baltimore winning. I just think Jackson, he's just a generational talent, and we've just never really seen anything. We've seen different aspects in other quarterbacks, but someone that harnesses all of them, the ability to throw, the ability to run, and the ability to run his offense and his ball club. I just think despite my perceived ineptitude of John Harbaugh that Lamar Jackson will overcome that and get to the Super Bowl. And I also think it'll be Detroit as well in the NFC because I don't think Philly will repeat this year. I think probably Dallas will be better. Obviously, the Commanders and then the Falcons, Bucks, and all of that. And then I got so Detroit will make it, but I got Baltimore winning over Detroit.
Okay. Bart, who you have?
I'm the same with Buffalo and Detroit.
Okay.
The Buffalo's got to make a move because pretty soon they're gonna start splitting those guys up.
Yeah, because their window of championship window is starting to get, starting to get closed.
Yeah,
And,
it really is.
and wouldn't it be something they win the Super Bowl their last year at Highmark Stadium, their very last year playing at what used to be called Rich Stadium, used to be called Orchard Park, used to be called Ralph Wilson Stadium. This is the last year of that stadium. They've been playing there since 1973. So what a way to end it over there in Buffalo at old school, at old Ralph Wilson Stadium, then winning the Super Bowl there. Dave, who you have as in the Super Bowl this year, and who you think is going to win that one?
Well, I'm on the Baltimore. Philly going back, but in time. I think they're gonna, like you always said, they're gonna be rolling the tape, watching the tape, and what do we have to do to stop Jalen Hurts and Saquon Barkley and that squad there, and that's why I think the Eagles are gonna fall short this time. But I'm still willing to put them in there. And with me being a wrestling fan, what Ric Flair always said, to beat a man, you gotta beat the man. Well, same thing here, with the Eagles. To beat a team, you gotta beat them.
Okay, so you had Philly going to the Super Bowl, so who's your pick in the AFC?
Come again?
Who's your pick in the AFC? You have Philly and who else?
Philly and Baltimore.
Okay.
With Baltimore winning.
Okay. All right. Great. So next up, this is going to turn into the fun side of the program right here, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to talk about, and this is something that I kind of thought about, and we're going to do something that Chuck had actually suggested. We all love football, but we also love football movies. So right now we're going to talk about really good football movies. And I will say myself, I'll go last on this one. Chuck, favorite football movie?
Favorite football movie for me? Oh, it's kind of it's kind of tough. But if you had to twist my arm, I would probably say favorite football movie is the original Longest Yard with Burt Reynolds, way back in the 70s. That would probably be my favorite football movie.
1974, they had a lot of NFL players in that movie too. So Burt Reynolds, Andy Albert, that's a classic. That is definitely a classic football movie. Mark, what's yours?
Okay, so the Friday Night Lights movie killed it, as well as the Friday Night Lights series. But
Okay.
I got one more. It's a comedy, but Necessary Roughness.
Yes,
My favorite.
yes. Scott Bakula. I love that movie. That's that's a really, really funny movie. Dave, favorite football movie?
Well, I'm not really into movies like talking about, but I can relate to a TV show where there was some football involved that I thought was funny and unique in a way was The Cosby Show. Way back in one of the earlier seasons when Rudy was playing football and they showed her running like 90 yards for a touchdown and they couldn't catch her. Because I thought it was unique to have a girl playing in the boys' football league, to begin with. So that'll be my pick, even though that's not a movie, but it's a TV show. But that's about it on that one, as far as I'm concerned.
My favorite football movie, when I went to see it, I was kind of hesitant on wanting to see it, but as I got into the story behind it, I was like, I don't know if I could. And I would tell you this, I am not ashamed to say, at the end of this movie, I cried. I ain't gonna lie. I cried at the end of this movie, and that's Rudy. The story about Notre Dame, Daniel Rudiger played for Notre Dame. I cried at the end of that movie because it was, at first I didn't want to see it because I'm not really a big Notre Dame fan. But that movie was so good and so emotional, and when he came running out the tunnel playing in his last game, he went through all of this stuff too, all this stuff that even just to get on the field and what the teammates did to get him on the field and everything else. I thought that was really, really emotional. Very, very good movie. I got a few movies here that I wrote down that I thought were that are very interesting to mention. We Are Marshall. The story of Marshall University and the plane crash from 1971. That's a really good movie. Matthew McConaughey. Very good movie.
Yeah.
The Express, the Ernie
Ernie
Davis.
Davis.
Story. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Did you know Chadwick Boseman's in that movie?
He was trying to remember. He wasn't Ernie Davis then. I'm trying to remember.
He was
what
Floyd Little.
capacity.
He was Floyd Little.
Okay, Denver Broncos, Floyd Little, right?
He was the replacement. You remember toward the end of the movie, he was on a recruiting trip to New Haven, Connecticut, to talk about this new kid that was going to replace him, the new recruit coming to Syracuse. That new recruit was Floyd Little, played by Chadwick Boseman.
Okay.
That was one of his early roles.
Okay.
Another one of my favorite movies, The Replacements, with Keanu Reeves.
I've never seen that.
Keanu, it's basically, the story is, it's sort of like the 1987 strike.
Yeah, Redskins.
Yeah,
Yes.
and it's fictionalized, and Keanu Reeves played a quarterback for this replacement, like a bunch of replacement players. The real players are on strike, and he's like starting, and Keanu Reeves is starting quarterback for this replacement team, playing in replace of the replacement players. So in replace of the real players. So that's one. Here's a classic for me: Any Given Sunday.
Yes.
Any Given Sunday is a classic, with Al Pacino, Jamie Foxx, that's another good one. Another movie that's a football movie that's kind of fell through the cracks over the years, but it's a really good one. And they featured two young actors in it named Wesley Snipes and Woody Harrelson. And one of the first rules they ever had together was Wildcats with Goldie Hawn. Mark, you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, buddy. Yep.
Okay. Of course, you had Jerry Maguire, which football was kind of like the backstory, of it. But that's another really good movie, more of a romantic type deal. But, it was still another pretty good football movie. One of my all-time favorites that nobody talks about, and I saw this movie about a couple months back, and I'm like, why nobody talks about how good this movie was? All the Right Moves with Tom Cruise.
Yeah.
A very young Tom Cruise, Craig T. Nelson played the coach, and it was like, a really, really good, gritty movie. About, with Tom Cruise and everything, trying to go to college and everything else. And the coach is, doing everything not to let him go to college or whatever. So, it's another great movie. Any other movies that y'all like that I haven't mentioned?
Gotta have the program, man.
Yes. Yeah.
Program. Yes. Gotta have that.
Omar Epps. One of his early roles. That was a movie he did after Juice, right? Omar Epps?
It's like around the same time. It's right around the same time, maybe slightly after. About like Omar Epps took homie. He took homie position, then took his woman too.
Yeah, and so you came up with the idea, Chuck, of your 5 favorite fictional football players. Okay, since you're the one who came up with this idea, who do you have?
Okay, the list goes as follows: At number 5, got Fred Twinkle Toes Flintstone.
Mm-hmm.
He had to go back. He hadn't gotten his high school diploma, so he had to go back to school and he had to play football a little bit in order to get his diploma. Number 4, got Al Bundy
Yeah.
Married with Children. I got Al Bundy. Number 3 was a tie because Mark mentioned earlier about the Friday Night Lights TV series. To me, it was way better than the movie, even though the movie was great. I loved it. It was a tie between Vince Howard, played by young Michael B. Jordan,
Yeah.
pre Creed, and Brian Smash Williams.
Okay.
So it's a tie between them. Then number 2, I got Alvin Mack from the program. He was the linebacker.
Yeah. Yeah.
And all of that. And then my number 1 spot, this is going to be crazy because I can't find the episode nowhere, but I remember watching it as a kid. Bullwinkle from the old Rocky and Bullwinkle cartoon.
Okay.
Because the cartoon I watched, they were down like 200-0 with like a minute left. And Bullwinkle Rocky threw the ball to Bullwinkle, and he just kept running from end zone to end zone. Ding, 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 ding. And he overcame a 200-point deficit in a minute. So he the baddest man. He the baddest fictional football player that ever lived.
Okay. All right. So, Mark, did you have a list?
Yeah. I started off with Paul Blake, Necessary Roughness.
Okay.
Actually, him and Andre Grimm would be my
Okay.
top 1 and number 2. Of course, Smash Williams, because I'm a big fan. Shane Falco.
Yep.
Gotta have him on the list.
Shane Falco, the quarterback from the replacement, Keanu Reeves.
Yep. And then something. It's only been out for a few years now, and it's become one of my favorite movies, and that's Chadwick Boseman playing Vontae Mack on Draft Day.
Yeah. All right. So that's your 5. Okay.
That's my 5.
All right, Dave, did you have a 5?
Not really. It's just
Okay.
kind of, yeah.
Okay. Well, for me, okay. First one. This one I'll have to go way back. One of the first ever football movies ever made. Man by the name of Harold Speedy Lamb from the movie The Freshman debuted 100 years ago next week, 1925. The football sequence in this movie is probably the funniest football sequence you will ever see in any movie. Basically, the name of the movie is The Freshman, and basically what it is he's an incoming freshman, meets a girl, wants to impress her by playing on a football team. So he goes and does it's a comedy. He goes through all of these machinations of trying to make the football team, makes the football team. The day of the big game, basically it came down to the final play of the game. They're down by 3. He tackles the guy running the ball against the opposing team. He picks up the ball on the 2-yard line and runs it all the way back. And when he gets into the end zone, he's tackled right at the goal line. He carries like half the team to the goal line. He tackles the guy he gets tackled at the goal line. The ball outstretched over the goal line, but back then in the 20s, they lined the field with actual chalk. So when his face is like in the chalk, so when he gets up, his face is like half his face is covered in chalk, and he carried him off the field. But the way that leading up to that was just pure comedy. It's one of the funniest football sequences you've ever seen. That's number 5. Number 4, Rod Tidwell from Jerry Maguire, played by Cuba Gooding Jr. He's up there for me. Number 3, Willie Beeman from Any Given Sunday, Jamie Foxx's character. Okay, I love him. Number 2, and I'm surprised neither one of you mentioned this guy. Bobby Boucher from The Waterboy. I'm surprised neither one of you guys mentioned him. But for me, number 2 is Bobby Boucher. And number 1, and here's a very obscure movie that I think is a really good movie, but no one ever talks about. The name of the movie is called Best of Times, starring Robin Williams, and my favorite football player, fictional football player, Kurt Russell's character, Reno Hightower, the quarterback. That's a badass dude, But Best of Times, I don't know if you've ever seen it, but I love that football movie. Love it. Honorable mention. I have Steven Jordovich, who was Tom Cruise in All the Right Moves. That was his name. And another honorable mention, Gavin Gray, played by Dennis Quaid in Everybody's All American, which is kind of like a loosely based story of Billy Cannon at LSU, which was filmed in your backyard, Chuck, in Baton Rouge mostly.
Yes, and I had thought about actually thought about Everybody's All American and all of that, but I passed that, and then my honorable mention, even though they actual people they say it's based on a true story, but I had Gary Bertier from Remember the Titans, and,
yeah.
And all of that. So yeah, and I had Cap Rooney from Any Given Sunday, because you remember when he first got hurt, he was like 3-time MVP and like 3-time Pantheon Cup winner, which was the equivalent of the Super Bowl. Even though we only saw him play briefly in that playoff game, I was just for the resume that they put out at the beginning of the movie, I had him as honorable mention too.
Okay, so before we wrap up here tonight, fellas, any other things you want to say? Anybody want to touch on college football? And I see that Mark is wearing a Florida State hat, so maybe he got something to say about his Seminoles this year, opening up against Bama.
Yeah, no. Last year I had to put my head in the sand. It's hard to even talk about college football these days, man. The NIL, the collective, and these young men jumping from team to team. It's really putting a hurting on teams. Sometimes you'll get that right fit, which was Florida State the year before. Then lost all those players. Then we tried to fill. There's no continuity there. You bring in new guys. You got to get with the system, and then Mike Norvell, his play call style, I really don't like it. A lot of RPOs.
Yeah.
It bothers me, especially when you don't have the quarterback like a Jordan Travis that can actually get it done.
Right.
So, no, college football, it's very hard to talk about, man. I just hope I got a winning record this year.
Yeah.
Yeah. As for me, being a college football fan, it's, to Mark's point, you kind of wonder about the NIL and all of that, and how, is it really benefiting college football, or in the transfer portal is like really, it's like, is that enough that we really don't see a lot of these guys? And I fear college football is going to go almost the way of college basketball. It's like guys that just stay for one season and they're gone, and you really can't build a program from that. And then guys transferring from team to team because they just can't find the right fit or whatever. I think that's really more than the NIL stuff. I think that's really messing up college football all the way around. It's like guys who go to one place, they don't start, move on to another place, they don't start. And then you're like, okay, like, why are you in college in the first place other than try to get to the NFL? But with you constantly transferring, that kind of makes you look suspect with you, because you can't deal with failure, you can't deal with rejection, that sort of thing. I think that's kind of damaging college football in a way as well.
Yeah, I agree with both of you, because it's just like, it's hard to even know what you have because there's just so many moving parts. Like, I don't even know who LSU has. And it used to be where signing day was a huge indicator of future success. But now with the transfer portal and people, and so many defections and attrition and all of that, it's just hard to keep up. And then you really got to kind of, maybe you can't really take an assessment until about 6 weeks into the season now, because you just have no idea what teams are going to look like. And I agree with you guys too. Like I was saying before we started, like, okay, I can understand transferring once, but you transfer 4 times, like 5 schools in 4 years, man, you at some point you're not as good as you thought you were, you know?
Right. Exactly. Exactly. Dave, anything you want to add to this?
Well, college football, I mean, it's just so early on in the season right now. I didn't even realize that, how close we are to getting started.
Well, we actually got
But
started yesterday.
I
There was
like
some
to
games
follow
yesterday.
LSU.
Yeah. Actually, there were some games yesterday.
Yeah, I understand.
Yeah.
Yeah, didn't Southern play
Yeah, Southern played.
somebody in Atlanta?
Yeah, NC
Yeah.
NC Central.
Got stomped.
And got stumped. Yeah. They can't stop nobody. I watched that game for like 30.
Oh, wow.
I watched the game last night, and they just could not stop anybody on the ground. They could put up points, but they can't stop anybody. Their defense is porous.
Right.
Man, we still got that dude. We
It's
still
just
got
so
that
it's
dude
just
from
so many
Prairie View.
teams out there.
Who was that, Chuck?
I say, I didn't mean to cut you off, Dave. I'm sorry. I was just
No, it's all right. It's all right.
do we still have that coach? You remember we got Prairie View's coach. Do we still have him, or
I believe so,
they
yeah. Yeah.
Okay, all right, okay.
But the team that they played last night, NC Central, North Carolina Central, they won the Black College National Championship either last year or the year before. So that was a really good team that they were playing against last night. So, no shame there, but still, can you stop somebody?
Yeah,
But-
yeah. But Dave, I'm sorry for cutting you off. What you had?
No, it's not a big deal. I was just saying, it's just so many teams out there with so many conferences. You just don't know who's gonna bring what to the table, probably until they get into conference play. You know?
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Because at the beginning, the top teams are just pretty much playing scrubs.
Yeah, because I don't know. I forgot. I saw one matchup next week or something like that, and
We got big matchups this week.
and
Texas, Ohio,
Texas, Ohio State, LSU, Miami,
LSU's playing Clemson,
yeah,
Miami's playing Notre Dame.
yeah. So that's a big match, but then you get like toward the middle of September, you got like, Alabama playing Our Lady Blessed of the Shroud Orphanage, it seems like that, but college football, as far as like, let me ask you guys this, and we'll go after this. What do you guys think of this new playoff system?
I don't like it too much because it's like, and it's not because of it's the 12 teams itself, but it just seems like it's never enough because now people are clamoring for 24 teams now, and I know with a 24 team tournament, that's a lot of filler and not a lot of stake, and it's borderline that with the 12 team playoff. Now, what I do like about it is the fact that you get very unique matchups that don't usually happen, and very unique matchups that don't normally happen in unique venues. Like, for example, Tennessee had to go up to Ohio State in November or December in the cold and play and play each other. I kind of like that a little bit, but I'll give them 12 teams. But even 12 teams are a bit much because usually it generally comes down to 2 to 4 teams ultimately. Who are the true contenders, and everything else is pretty much just filler.
Right. I kind of agree with that. As with that's concerned, I think last year we had a matchup, even though it ended up being a blowout. But you had Indiana playing Notre Dame, which Indiana hadn't played Notre Dame at Notre Dame, I think, since the '60s. They're in the same state, but they never play each other. And Indiana got destroyed, but that's something that you just don't see. To Chuck's point, but you have a lot of matchups that's a possibility of happening that you will never see. 12 teams, I think, is a bit much. As an overall, I'm not a fan of it, but because I'm more of an old school, like, okay, give me the bowl games, but at the same time, pick like 4 teams and just have them have the 4, and then that's it. You know what I'm
I
saying?
agree. Yes.
Well,
Like
we could go back to the BCS.
we could go back even further, have teams being voted national champ that we had back in the day.
Yeah.
You know?
But have you guys noticed that the teams don't seem to be as strong anymore? It's like I'm sure NIL plays a role too, but like now a lot of these teams they seemingly have a pretty good margin for error. Like you could lose 2 to 3 games as long as you're playing good ball at the right time and you fall within that top 12. You still get to go to the playoffs, even though where it used to be before, one loss at the wrong time, that was the season pretty much. So, you pretty much, everything was on the line each week. So I think now with the present system, it's kind of diminished the regular season quite a bit.
Yeah, it has. You don't want it to get like the way college basketball is, where the regular season is essentially doesn't really matter. Just get to the tournament,
Yes.
And I think that's if they keep going this route, that's where we're going to end up. I think that the whole conference thing, the way they've done the conferences now, like USC and UCLA are part of the Big Ten now, and having these super conferences and stuff like that. The one thing that I wonder about is like, what is the ultimate goal here as far as like having these big conferences? Like you have like Oklahoma and Texas in the SEC, and then you have Stanford and Cal in the ACC, which makes no sense. What's the end game here? What are we trying to accomplish here with all of this? I know the grand scheme of thing is money. That's obvious. But as far as like what is the actual goal of what they're trying to do, I'm still in the air. I'm still kind of foggy about that.
You and me both.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it's tough because you just don't know. And then, like to your point, money. Like Texas is pretty much a conference in of itself. University of Texas, they had their own network.
Right.
So for them to kind of forego that and still join the SEC, how much money is involved with that move? Really, and it's just I really don't know either. It just seems like a lot more emphasis on athletics and not student. And it's just, when even though you get to see some unique things, you start to see them too often, then it takes the shine off a little bit,
Yeah.
And this committee, the
Mark,
committee is really killing everything. Because I want to say this, not because I think Florida State was shafted. What people fail to understand is you tell a kid you do everything right, you go undefeated, and you get shut out of playing in the playoff. Like it was Florida State's to lose. That's what a lot of people don't understand. It didn't matter if they got blown out. It was theirs to lose.
Right.
And the committee robbed people of that, and they're going to continue to do that. It doesn't matter if Indiana makes it and gets blown out. It's theirs to lose. You put the formula in place.
Yeah.
Let them kids play. Let them kids compete to the best of their ability. If they get blown out, they get blown out. It doesn't matter. But they did everything right to get to the playoffs. And then now you got this committee who's going to start because of a TCU, a Florida State, Indiana. They're going to start keeping these guys out of it simply because of viewers. Man, I watch any game.
Right.
Like college football fans, I will watch. It doesn't matter. Florida State doesn't have to be playing for me to watch college football.
Right.
They're taking it away from the kids. That's the only thing I don't like about this whole deal.
But in your unique case, I agree with that because they excluded you based on an injury projection, and it's like you can't be like, well, what's going to probably happen or what was likely to happen because next man up, people people win, you coach them up because I think under the 4-team system, you have a whole month to kind of get someone ready to play. Yeah. And that's you earned the right. And then, it's been plenty of times where backup quarterbacks, like most notably, you remember Nebraska, Tommy Frazier had blood clot issues. And Brooke Behringer came in as the backup and was able to lead them, and they still kept rolling. The kids have a right, and to your point, if they lose, they lose, but don't base it on what you think will probably happen because we never definitively know.
Ohio
Yeah.
State won a national title with the backup.
Yeah, exactly.
Correct. You know,
Exactly.
So, I mean, all that shit goes out the window, man. It aggravates me. It aggravated me to no end because everybody, oh man, they're gonna get blown out. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I've been coaching kids, and if you're telling kids to do everything right and to keep them from that, that's wrong.
I
You know,
agree.
and that whole Florida State thing, I go back to what you're talking about, Mark, is the fact that they had, injuries and stuff, which happens to everybody, and I think that this whole super conference thing I really do believe is going to make it worse. I think what they should have done was keep all the conferences the way that they are, have an 18 playoff, the 8 conference winners go to this thing, okay? Use the bowl games, the major bowl games as playoff games, and have a national championship the week before the Super Bowl at some neutral site. That kind of way, it kind of works out for everybody, because at one time you had like 6 major conferences, okay? And have the winners of each of those conferences and 2 wild cards. 8 teams, bam, there you go. But now you want to get 12 teams and you got these super conferences, and they talk one prospective thing they're talking about is possibly having like an NFL type conference system where you have American Conference, National Conference, or East, West, whatever. Get rid of the conferences altogether, get rid of the Big Ten, get rid of the SEC, get rid of all of that, and just go just a blanket thing all the way across like the NFL. As much as a traditionalist as I am, I think that is an asinine idea. I think it's horrible. That is basically going to be the end of college football as we know it. Now, is the way that college football is set up right now, is it a perfect thing? No, it's not perfect. It never is. But when you have money involved in school presidents trying to make as much money as they can, and to Mark's point, college football is slowly becoming a reality show. If you really sit and think about it, it's slowly becoming a reality show. Who does the viewers want to see, rather than who is earning their shot? That's where we are in college football, unfortunately, I think.
Yeah, but on top of that, the thing that really irks me with this, like, okay, now it's a 12-team playoff. Everyone knows it is, right? Then when you get there, teams 13 through like 16 to 17, they start politicking. Well, we deserve to be there, and we should have been. You got your ass whooped 3 times.
Exactly.
You lost 3 games, man. You just calm down on the deserve part, because we don't definitively know everybody can't get in, and then all the whining and the politicking and all of that, man. You don't want that. Win your games, man.
Right, exactly. I mean, you see that in college basketball. You got a team that was on the bubble since January. Okay, they get left out of the mix. Okay, and then they're talking about, well, we beat this team and we beat that team. Yeah, but you beat them in September when nobody was really playing. And you've been on the bubble since January. So what are you talking about? I don't think you're going to see that too much in college football. You may hear it from the 8th, 9th, 10th place teams, okay, trying to get in, but that far down? No, I don't think so. Nobody's going to really take them seriously anyway. But at the same token, college football right now, in my opinion, is in a very precarious state. Do I still watch? Heck yeah. But I think overall, it's just in a very precarious state.
They're doing too much.
Yeah.
And when you do too much, you always eventually erode away from your foundation. And then once you erode your foundation, you generally have to regroup in some sort of way.
Right. Well, anyway, guys, it was a very, very good show. I really appreciate y'all taking your time out of your Sunday for for joining me. I really appreciate it.
It was a great discussion. Great to see you guys.
I enjoyed it too.
Yeah. Well, that will do it for this edition of the Historically Speaking Sports Podcast, which is a proud member of the Sports History Network. And to contact the show, please contact us at historically.speaking.sports@gmail.com. And also, you could shoot us a line whenever. And also, if you like the show on Spotify or iTunes or wherever you listen to podcasts, please like and subscribe. It really helps us out here on the show. And on behalf of Charles Combs, on behalf of Mark Boutte, and on behalf of David Bashay, I'm Dana Augusta, saying so long and wishing all of your teams, all of the NFL and in college football, whatever team it is, wish you all good luck in this upcoming 2025 season. Have a good night. And thank you once again for joining us. And as a reminder, as always, this podcast comes to you from the Bill King Memorial Studio in the sports wing of TM4 Enterprises, located in suburban Atlanta, which is in the shadow of Stone Mountain. Once again, don't forget to subscribe to the show to get new episodes whenever they are released. And as always, please tell people about us. Tell your family, tell your friends, tell your neighbors, tell your co-workers. Hell, tell a passerby on the street if you think that they like sports history. And also, I would really like to thank once again the guys who came on the show with us in this episode. Not only my co-host Charles Combs for joining us, but also Mark Boutte and David Bashay. Once again, thanks guys for joining us. And as always, be good to each other, be good to yourself. And no matter whatever you do, make sure you do the very best you can and make this world a much, much better place. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
This podcast is part of the Sports History Network, your headquarters for the yesteryear of your favorite sport. You can learn more at sportshistorynetwork.com.
The Sports History Network, where legends live on and the past plays loud. Welcome to the place where history's proud. From gridiron glory to the hardwood stars, from the racetrack heat to Olympic bars. It's the voices, the stories, the moments you miss, told by fans and pros who live for this. Hook and Themic, the Sports History Network, where the past comes alive. Podcasts and blogs that keep the flame high. From Babe to Brady, Alley to the Dome. If it's history and sports, then this is the home. SportsHistoryNetwork.com, the headquarters of sports yesteryear.